Long ago, God's special people, the Israelites, lived in a beautiful land, but all was not well. King Ahab ruled, and he was a terrible king. His queen Jezebel was even worse. She told everyone to stop loving God and worship a pretend god named Baal. Baal was just a statue. He couldn't hear, see, or do anything. Still, Ahab and Jezebel built huge temples for Baal and told everyone he sent the rain and made plants grow. Many Israelites started to forget the one true God who had always loved and rescued them. It was a dark, sad time. But God never forgets his people, even when they forget him. He saw their hearts turning away and had a plan. God needed someone brave to speak his truth and remind the people of his love. That someone was Elijah, a prophet, who loved God with all his heart. Elijah wasn't afraid of Ahab, Jezebel, or their pretend God. He knew God was the real, powerful creator of everything. Elijah was ready to do whatever God asked, no matter how big or scary. God called Elijah to stand up and speak out. The people needed to remember who truly cared for them. God's plan was about to unfold. Even in the darkest times, God's light shines through. Elijah would be the messenger to bring hope back to God's people. The stage was set for something amazing. God was about to show everyone who he really was. Elijah's faith would be tested, but God would be with him every step. The story of Elijah was just beginning. God's love never fails, even when people turn away. He always has a way to bring his children back. Elijah's courage would change everything. The people would soon see the power of the true God, and God's love would shine brighter than ever. The adventure was about to begin. God spoke to Elijah and told him to deliver a message to King Ahab. Elijah went straight to the king, unafraid, knowing God was with him. Standing before the angry king, Elijah declared, "As the Lord, the God of Israel, lives, there will be no dew or rain for the next few years, except at my word." No rain, no dew, nothing would grow. This wasn't just a weather report, it was a direct challenge to Baal, the so-called god of rain. If there was no rain, it would prove Baal was powerless. Elijah's words put the truth in the spotlight. Only God controls the rain and the harvest. King Ahab was furious. His pretend god was being exposed as a fake. The people faced a choice: keep trusting a statue or remember the living God. Elijah had spoken God's message boldly. Now everyone would see whose word had real power. The drought would test the hearts of the people. Would they turn back to God or keep following empty idols? Elijah's faith was strong and he trusted God's plan. The land would wait for rain and for the truth to be revealed. God was about to show everyone who was truly in control. Elijah's brave words set everything in motion. The test had begun. After Elijah's bold message, God knew Ahab and Jezebel would be furious and want to harm Elijah. So God had a secret plan to keep Elijah safe. He told Elijah, "Go east and hide in the Kerith ravine near the Jordan River." It was a quiet, hidden place, perfect for hiding. God promised Elijah water from the brook and food delivered in a most unusual way. "I have commanded the ravens to bring you food," God said. Elijah trusted God's strange plan and obeyed without question. He packed his few things and set off for the ravine. The journey was long, but Elijah followed God's leading. In the quiet valley, Elijah waited for God's promise to come true. God was not only protecting Elijah, but also teaching him to trust in his care. The ravine became a place of safety and learning. Elijah was alone but never forgotten. God's plan was unfolding, step by step. Even in hiding, God was with Elijah. The prophet's faith was growing stronger. God's promises never fail. Elijah was about to experience God's amazing provision. The adventure in the ravine was just beginning. God's care would soon be seen in a miraculous way. Elijah waited, trusting God's word. The next chapter of his journey was about to unfold. In the quiet of the Kerith ravine, Elijah waited, and God delivered. Every morning as the sun rose, ravens swooped in, bringing bread and meat. Not just once, but every single day. Elijah's breakfast and dinner arrived on wings, just as God promised. The ravens, usually selfish birds, obeyed God and became his delivery service. Elijah must have marveled at this daily miracle. God used even wild birds to care for his prophet. The brook provided water, and the ravens brought food. Day after day, God's faithfulness was clear. Elijah never went hungry or thirsty. God's power was on display in the simplest things. Even in the wilderness, God's care was constant. Elijah's trust in God grew with every meal. The ravens never missed a delivery. God was showing that he could use anything to provide. Elijah's heart was full of thanks. God's love was as real as the food he ate. Elijah was alone in the ravine, no people, just the sound of the brook and the flapping of raven wings. It could have felt lonely, hiding from an angry king while the land suffered drought. But Elijah was never truly alone. God was with him every moment, his presence like a comforting friend. In the quiet, Elijah could hear God's whispers and remember his faithfulness. Each visit from the ravens reminded Elijah that God keeps his promises. This time alone was a lesson in trust. Elijah learned to rely on God, even when things seemed impossible. His faith grew stronger like a tree with deep roots. God's way was always best, even if it didn't make sense at first. Being with God was better than being anywhere else. The quiet days prepared Elijah for bigger things ahead. God was building his courage and trust for future challenges. Elijah needed to know, deep down, that God was always with him. The lonely ravine became a place of learning and growing. Elijah's faith took flight just like the ravens. God was shaping him for the next part of his journey. Even in solitude, God's love surrounded him. Elijah's trust became unshakable. The time in the ravine was a gift, a chance to grow closer to God. God was preparing Elijah for miracles yet to come. The prophet's heart was ready for whatever God would ask next. Alone, but never abandoned. Elijah's faith was stronger than ever. Elijah's story isn't just ancient history, it's full of lessons for us today. God still provides in surprising ways, just as he did with the ravens. When we face challenges, God can send help from unexpected places. Elijah obeyed God, even when the plan seemed strange. Because he trusted and obeyed, he was safe and cared for. Obedience to God always brings blessing, even if it feels scary. God's faithfulness never fails. He provided for Elijah every day. God's care is constant, not just once in a while. He uses ordinary things to do extraordinary work. When we face hard times, we can look for God's hand at work. He may not send birds with food, but he always finds a way to care for us. Elijah learned to trust God completely by the brook. We can learn the same lesson in our own lives. God's love and provision are steady and sure. He can turn any situation into a display of his power. Trusting God brings peace, even in the unknown. Elijah's story reminds us to watch for God's surprising solutions. God's lessons are for us too. The greatest lesson from Elijah and the ravens is this: God never forgets his children. Even when Elijah was hidden away, God knew exactly where he was and what he needed. God cared for every detail of Elijah's life, down to his daily bread. Sometimes we feel alone or forgotten, but God always sees us. He knows our names, our worries, and our needs. Just as he sent ravens to Elijah, God has special ways to care for us. It might be a kind friend, an unexpected blessing, or peace in a hard time. God's love is always working, always reaching out to us. He is our provider, protector, and faithful friend. When life feels hard, remember Elijah, the brook, and the ravens. The same God who cared for Elijah cares for you with even greater love. He has a good plan for your life, full of hope. Trust him, listen for his voice, and watch for his wonderful ways. God never forgets his children, not ever. He holds you safe in his hands always. You are precious to him more than you can imagine. God's love never runs out. He is always near, always caring. When you feel alone, remember, God remembers you. His promises are true, his care is constant, and you are never forgotten.